That's what we're going to do in the last session. And after me, next week, Dr. Sakuntala will talk about the quality, product and process quality session. And then Dr. Travis will come back again. And then she'll do the lean management. And then Dr. Travis come back and do one session, I think. After that, we'll be done. Right? So we've done supply chain. We've done the resilience. How do you make your supply chains more reliable by making our supply chains robust? And now today we are going to talk about how do you know whether your supply chain operating properly, because what gets measured only will, right? So unless you measure, unless you track, you don't know where you stand. So it's very important that you need to have clear the identified performance measures. It's like for individuals, for processors, how do we know what does success look like has to be identified with some smart KPIs so that it's easy for us to know whether we are moving in the right direction, because that will help us to look at how the employees are behaving in the organization, because if they are really motivated and they are very capable and they're skilled enough, then it will reflect in the results, right? I mean, ideally that should be the case, right? So if the performance measures will really strongly demonstrate the behavior of managers and employees in the organization, therefore it must be tailored to fit company's mission and strategy, because everything that we do in the company must stem from the vision and mission, from there to the competitive strategy that you have for the company, and then from that to the functional strategies. So if you're in supply chain, you need to really look at supply chain strategy. And in the supply chain strategy, what is it that you need to do? And for each and every level in the supply chain, how do you convert that strategy into action? Very important, right? So you have to carefully think about how you're going to look at it. Now, if you want to say that I want to be a very efficient supply chain, that's just merely a word only, right? So how do you make it efficiently? Efficient your supply chain? You need to look at what? What is your focus? Efficiency means the focus is what? Yeah? When you're saying efficiency, what should you focus? What should you be focusing? Efficiency means effectively using resources, right? Inputs. If you can get more from the output, from the input that you get without any wastage, you become very efficient. No wastage, right? Everything happens first right time, right first time, right? And therefore, whatever you produce is the right quality, so hardly any wastage, right? Or if you are importing some material, you clear within the time, you don't have to pay any demurrage and detention. You clear within the rent-free time that the port is offering you, so you don't need to pay additional things, right? And you supply the demand properly, you don't need to expedite any shipments, so you don't need to pay extra freight costs. So like that, you don't have to pay overtime because you didn't get the demand right. Of course, if you have the as part of your capacity plan, overtime is part of it, then you have to pay overtime. But if it's not factored in, then you need to really additionally pay, because why people are doing overtime is we cannot do it within the normal time. But if that additional hours are factored in the capacity, then of course it's okay. So if it's not planned and you're doing something out of the ordinary, meaning that you're not managing well, right? It's not efficient use of resources. It can be use of energy, use of water, use of people, or even equipment for that matter. If your vehicle is not efficient, meaning your fuel efficiency is not right. Number of miles you can travel for the petrol that you have put into the tank is less, meaning either something is gone wrong in the car. Similarly in the company, right? So you always look at fuel efficiency before you buy a vehicle. So like that. So if you're very cost conscious, you buy a cost efficient vehicle. If you're very, very high end kind of person, you don't care how much petrol you guzzle through your this thing, and you buy a Merc or very high. But of course, you focus on the comfort there. So again, depending on the need, so you need to understand performance measures must be tailored to fit the company's mission and strategy, because it's not only efficiency, You have top-end customers who really focus on the responsiveness, a niche product. So that strategy is one strategy. Bottom at the customer, look at focusing on the cost. So then focusing on the efficiency there. But it's very important also to understand when you're looking at performance measures, you should not be overly reliant on one performance measure and really work on that. One performance measure alone will not tell you whether the company is moving in the right direction. Give me an example of such a situation. You need to have multiple things that you need to track to look at all angles. But give me one situation or an example where if you're looking only one aspect, but you will ignore the other aspect, therefore you will not get the true picture about the company. Any area you can talk about in the financials. Okay, so he's saying if you only focus on the people's attendance, they are all coming to work, whether they are like the government sector, no? We have 1.6 million or something government employees, right? Like equivalent to the trishaw drivers in the country. We have 1.7 million trishaw drivers in the country. So are they productive? Is a big question mark, right? Every time a new government comes, they bring all their constituent people into the government. If you look at the port, when Nimal Siripala was the minister, he will bring everybody from Uva Badul area. So much so that during COVID, when that they had to even provide transport to even when he was the health minister. So they had to go transport to go up to that far. So like that. Or maybe when Ranatungas come in, Gampaha area. So like that, whenever you have a minister, that's how they used to do. That's how, I mean, so somebody was saying in the port, I don't know, I can't remember whether the numbers are correct. You have some 30,000 people, but you only need some 2,000 or 3,000 to run. Just imagine the waste. So that's not being very efficient, isn't it? So that's the kind of politicization that has happened when you keep recruiting. So your productivity, of course, will go for a toss. And they will come to work also every day. But of course, what have they contributed to the country's GDP? What have they done? So we need to look at the productivity of people. That's why Dr. Sakuntala will talk about it. In lean management, Toyota production system, we talk about 7 waste, and later on there is another 8th waste also. 8th waste is unutilized brain. If you have the wrong person in the wrong place also, you don't know how to do the job. Like this, you just get anybody and usanang security meeting and something or whatever like that, without any clear criteria, you just recruit people, not for the job, not for the qualification, just take somebody because he has supported you. So something like that, right? So you need to really, it actually went off from my this, see what I have to say. What did I ask the question? Sorry? Yeah, so it's important that you need to have the right, okay, no, I'm talking about the 7 ways, right? So the Toyota production system, they talk about non-value adding things that we create in organizations, right? So maybe I will mention that so you can all answer when Dr. Sakuntala asks this question, right? So Tim Wood, you call it for ease of understanding, unnecessary transport, unnecessary inventory, unnecessary movement, unnecessary waiting time, and then over processing, overproduction, any defects that you manufacture, and S is the skill, unutilized skills, unutilized brains, right? So if you don't, one thing is if you are the wrong person in the wrong job, also you will not do. But if you have too many people and you're not utilizing your brain to do the right thing, to do it efficiently, also is not good. So if you have more than one person do a particular job, obviously people will idle and they will be not using their brains because everybody like a relay will touch everything and they'll somehow try to spend the time. So that kind of thing will happen. So attendance is certainly not a good indicator, but from a financial angle, to give me an example. If you only look at the turnover of a company, is it good enough? Why? Why do you say it's not? Okay, so whether there are repeat purchases also have to be looked at, right? What else it will not say when you only look at the turnover. So one thing she's talking about is the customer loyalty. Do we know whether the same people are buying, or what percentage of that sale coming from the existing consumers or new consumers? Are they dropping out? That's also very important. Sorry? Cost of sale. Yes, we need to look at that. We don't know how we are achieving that sale. You may spend a lot of money and achieving the sale, doing a lot of promotions, using an army of people to run the promotion, to do the sales, which is not being productive. And another thing, do we know whether we are collecting money? Yeah, debtors, huge debtor list you have, but you keep selling, and then at the end of the year, we realize, my God, you've achieved the target, but you haven't collected the fund. So it become a bad debt, right? So you need to see the impact. So you need to know what are the things to get the overall picture you need to have, right? So you shouldn't be over reliant on one thing, because it will be at the expense of something else which you may not even notice it. It's very important that you need to look at the whole picture. So whole picture has to be looked at to get an overall view of what's happening in a company, right? So what are the characteristics of an effective performance metrics, right? So you need to review it actually. Anything if you don't review, because the world is changing at a rapid pace. I explained to you last time, we live in a Barney world, world which is very chaotic. It's the age of chaos, right? In this so-called age of chaos, when you look at the change, the rate at which the change is happening, you need to understand, if you don't review, you must be doing things that is not relevant anymore for the new normal that we are experiencing. So you need to regularly review. Now, earlier, companies used to plan for 4 to 5 years ahead of time. Now the planning horizon is very short, because we don't know what is going to happen. While you might have a plan for your understanding overall, but you will need to really look at a short horizon planning now, because the change is so frequently happening, and you need to look at that, right? So it's important for us to understand that the volatility and the change, the rate at which the change is happening, we need to understand how do we really bring back the changes into your company process by reviewing it and then adjusting it. You can't be adjusting every day, otherwise you can't do anything, but at least annually, when you're doing the annual planning process, you need to do the review. Then only you will understand, okay, now the situation has changed, and then you need to document why you changed it. Scenario, assumptions have to be documented, otherwise next year you might say, why did we adjust this, or why did we increase it? So the demand planning team, when they are looking at the forecast, adjusting or increasing or whatever, through increasing, decreasing, you need to document it. Otherwise, next year when you look at why you reduced it, you don't know why. So you need to have this information, and the scenarios, the assumptions have to be documented, because the assumption may change. When the assumptions change, you might have to relook at it, right? So documentation will help you why you did what you did. Then if that circumstances change, you will then adjust it again, right? So you need to adjust it. And it is very high level. It is linked to the very high level strategies and objectives, because companies have strategies at a high level, that the top management really drive that agenda. But strategy has to be executed, but it has to be brought from a 40,000 altitude to like a ground level. So when the plane has to be grounded, that is when the execution happens. So not at a very top level, but you need to, strategy will be up there, but that strategy has to be broken into small pieces so that everybody will understand, and it has to be implemented at the ground level. So it has to be converted by level, opening the peeling, like the peeling the onion, just peeling the onion slowly so that you get to the real end, so that we know the last person in the company, when that person does something, the other person will achieve that, like that. So it's like giving the line of sight. I don't know whether I used this last time also. Line of sight means you show that when I do this, that the company will achieve this. So everyone in the organization should have the line of sight, so that what is it that you need to do. Let's say in an organization hierarchy, right? So you have the top management here, chairman or whatever. So there are different levels in the company. So these are the operational people, workforce. So strategy is done that level. Okay, you get inputs from everybody, but in the organization hierarchy, this person may not understand when you say, I want to double the business, or I want to grow year on year at a CAGR of this much. They won't understand anything, right? But how do you tell them, when what I do, when I do this, I will achieve that. So what is the connection? Then when they understand, so for example, if you're in a manufacturing environment or in a garment industry or in a manufacturing organization, you are saying, I want to achieve, let's say, 1 billion this year turnover, right? So 1 billion, to do that, you need to convert month, daily, like that. So the person at the factory floor should only know number of units that they need to produce every hour in that shift, right? Each machine, whatever they are producing. So their connection is to convert this 1 billion, how much you need to produce daily, weekly. So you have daily target, weekly target, shift targets, monthly target, quarterly target. So all that will get aggregated, and finally you will convert that and put it into unit price, and you will get the turnover. So you should, everybody in the organization should have that line of sight. Line of sight. So you need to have line of sight. So I should see. So I feel when I press this button, I achieve this target. The moment you give that visibility to people, they will commit to that. They will be motivated. So very important that you need to do that. I'll explain to you later. There are ways and means to do that. So line manager must know this. You need to show the connection. And this will also help you to show the connection to your strategy, all that. Right? So everybody, so that's why in garment industry specifically, they are in the production floor, even FMCG also some companies, there is a, on the notice board, what is the going rate? It's like a cricket match. Now you didn't hit, so what is the run rate? So like that, if one line doesn't achieve the target, then it will put the blame on the next shift to achieve the target. So they will put pressure amongst themselves. If I cannot come to work, they will somehow come, somebody else will back up for you and then do that. So why? Because they know if I don't achieve this target, I won't achieve that. Then I won't get my bonus. So that's how you should motivate people. When you have the line of sight, you know this is the target for you to achieve this. When you do this, company will achieve that. So all of us are happy, no? When the company do well, then we get something out of it as well, right? So you need to give that line of sight. Very important, right? So that's why it's connected, and it's linked to all, not only your specific function, everybody. So it's collectively, everybody should work together to achieve that. And also, it will help individuals to be accountable. If we are not very clear who should do what by when, and they will take their own time to do that. So I always say in my minutes, whatever meetings, I said you must have a proper 3 W's. What are the 3 W's? Who? No, what should you do? Who should do that? And by when you complete it. Otherwise, minutes, they write like, long sentences. By the time you come to the end of the sentence, you don't know what they have to do. So don't write a lot of things, because meetings can be very short. You have a clear 3W, and then you review that, whether you've done it or not. You ask them to put a system, put green traffic light, red, green, amber. If you have done it, you green, don't discuss. Well, pat on the back, right? If it's amber, they're on the way, but they have still difficulty. But red meaning serious concern. Warning signal, you need to support those guys to quickly come back on track. If not, tell them how to do it. They should tell us what are the obstacles that they are going through. A lot of things have to be made it very short. Otherwise, you just discuss. I mean, I did some consultancy for World Bank some few years ago to improve the health sector supply chain. I used to go and observe how these government officials sit at the meetings, how in one of the health department, medical supplies division. So they used to organize I think on a Wednesday they organize a meeting with all the stakeholders to check the shipments, what they plan earlier, whether it's coming or not. So they start the meeting at 2 o'clock, right? I don't know whether they still do that. 2 o'clock, And everybody who comes to the meeting, then only call and check, then shipment check. Right? So you actually, the meeting goes on till about 8, 9, 10. So how can you work? Nobody will have any focus, no? Attention span, especially in the new generation, is less than a goldfish now of human beings now. Right? Earlier it was some 12 seconds. No, goldfish is 12. Just check the Google in chat. Goldfish is 12. Human beings 8 seconds now. So just imagine doing this kind of meeting. Less than 1 hour meetings you should have it. Otherwise people will do their own thing with their devices. So you must be ready when you come for a meeting. If you can't, Elon Musk always say, he only has one hour. Within 1 hour, whatever you want to discuss. If not, he just walks out. Otherwise, you're also promoting that kind of bad behavior. People should be ready and they should be accountable. Why I'm talking about is accountability is very important. We want hold people accountable. We don't hold our politicians accountable and then we blame them. No point. It's in our hands to put the right people and then don't blame, because you only have done it. We should blame ourselves, right? So in a company, if you're a manager, line manager, you should put the right people in the right job. For that, you need to spend time, because you need to nicely do a proper advertisement, clearly identify the responsibility, what do you expect from that role, all that has to be very clear cut. And then you also have the skill needs of that particular person for you to do that. So when you know that, you recruit the right person which will fit into that. Of course, you may not have 100% equal kind of skill level, but there will be gaps. So your role is identify the skill gap for the job and prioritize. While the person is doing the job, you also enable the person with those training and projects and, like getting them to do MBA or something like that. So that's the role of the line manager. It's so easy if you do the right things first. What you need to do will be very less then. But the problem is we don't do the right thing. We just don't even look at the advertisement when HR sends to you. And then you blame HR for not recruiting the right person. I always blame the line manager, because it's in your own interest to provide the right information to HR. You can't expect HR to know everything. You can't. That's why you need to have this HR business partnering system where they sit with you, understand what you need for your company, function that you're responsible, and all of that. So accountability is very key. Otherwise, company cannot reach their vision and mission and strategy, right? Because when you have everybody working towards that goal, it actually promotes teamwork. The example I mentioned about in factories, right? When one person can't come, and because of that, the line target you will miss, others will chip in and say, I will come and cover up for you. And if there's a short, because the entire team will get impacted if because of one person or a new person puts in there, the line efficiency is coming down, they will protest and say, no, new person must be working in a practice line first, achieve that efficiency level, then only you will put in there. So like that. So you need to put peer pressure, you need to put companies pressure on the line manager saying that we can't jeopardize our target. Company must ensure that person come up to certain level. So like that, right? It's like commercial pilots are not given the license to go and fly these passenger planes. You need to have a certain number of flying hours. Then only you can fly a passenger airline, right? So like that, you should be competent enough to do the job, at least the basic understanding, right? Very important. And also performance measures will be the basis for your reporting. When you have in your dashboards, these are the things you will be tracking. So you know whether you're moving in the right direction and whether the processes are happening the way you want. It will tell you, because you already identified the targets, whether you're within the limit or not. If it go above, process is not in control. If process is within the range within which you have identified, process is within the standard way that you have identified. So all this is for you to be convinced that performance metrics will really help the organizations to really do the job well. So let's do this video. Watch this video.
Sports is a world of measurement. Let's take a sport like basketball, where players attempt to make baskets. No, I meant ball and hoop type baskets. Suppose I tell you a player averages 23 points per game. Is that a good player, a bad player, a great player? A good coach would know that based off this limited information, it would be impossible to answer that question with any certainty. I mean, basketball is about more than just scoring, right? Players can block shots, rebound missed shots, steal the ball, and assist others in scoring. They can also make a number of mistakes that benefit their opponents. So, now, what if I tell you that the player averages 23 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists, and 4 steals per game? Is that a good player, a bad player, a great player? A poor coach might be tricked into answering that question, but a good coach would still realize that those statistics measure only certain aspects of effectiveness. To truly assess this player, you still need more information. How many shots did they take? How many minutes did they play? How many possessions did their team have during the game? In essence, a good coach wants to know how the player made use of their resources. Okay, so suppose I gave you the shots, minutes, possessions, available rebounds, and any other efficiency-related data. Would you feel comfortable making a decision about that player? Think before you answer. What other type of data would you want? I would want to know situational data. Suppose those 23 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists, and 4 steals were accumulated by a tall 25-year-old man against the worst defenders in blowout games in a league of 5-year-old children. Still feeling good about this player's statistics? What we're seeing is that not every set of data is sufficient in helping us make good decisions. A good system of metrics needs to provide information on effectiveness, efficiency, and adaptability. And this isn't just true for sports like basketball. Businesses constantly seek to collect and study data in an effort to make good decisions. In fact, humans are hopelessly addicted to metrics that will aid them in making good decisions. What time is it? What's the temperature? What's your grade in this class? These are numbers that guide our actions. You see, performance metrics can actually motivate the behaviors of athletes, employees, students, and business partners. As the manager of a global supply chain, how can you know if your supply chain is effective, efficient, and adaptable? How can you motivate employees and supply chain partners thousands of miles away to do the things your customer and your company value most? And how can you identify those employees that deserve raises and promotions, as well as those who need assistance, additional training, or perhaps disciplinary action? What we're seeing is that a good system of performance metrics can provide guidance for managers, employees, and even customers. But to do so, modern managers, especially supply chain managers, must marry quantitative skill, psychological understanding, and operational know-how to develop the right performance measurement tools and systems so their companies can achieve their own unique set of goals. And this is an enormous challenge. Like a basketball coach, supply chain managers need to identify their best players, identify and improve the weaknesses of the team, know which situations provide the team with the best opportunities, and also understand which resources are being wasted. But your team is made up of thousands of players all over the world, and it's your job to get them all working toward the same set of goals. So, don't let bad numbers lead you down a destructive path. Take control of the numbers and let them guide your team to an effective, efficient, and adaptable global supply chain.
So I'm sure that link to the sports arena, you got an idea, because sometimes you may achieve those goals, but with the weakest opponents. So you need to know the context, the situation, all that is also important. So if you want to be really having the right performance measures, you need to make sure it is finally delivering the results. It has to be effective, efficient, and also adaptable to the situation, right? So they say, no, statistics damn lies and statistics, right? So you will always, numbers can always, politicians do it very well now. Nowadays, they talk about the economy and they show you one part only, but there is another side to that coin. Two sides to the coin, right? So they don't tell the bad side of it, they only show the good side of it, right? So if you're not intelligent, you get tricked, right? So you need to know why the economy is doing well now, why the economy was bad earlier. And if you don't, the poor villagers, they don't know why the economy is doing well, inflation has come down, all because we are not paying the loan also now. Plus, of course, we have fixed the economy doing well. Now we don't print money. So lots of things that are there, which is telling the story in a different way. But we need to understand the total picture. Without knowing the total picture, you can't make a judgment about, because companies at different levels take decisions. But if you don't look at the context and take decisions based on the numbers alone, you get tricked and you may do the wrong thing, right? So you need to go more into details. That's why when you go to a doctor, of course, sometimes the doctors also get you to do a lot of tests. They must be getting something out of it also. But I'm saying that's why they keep asking you to dig deeper. Okay, this number is not right, so you would go and do this test, do this test, because they want to be sure what the reason is, not just looking at the first instance and just looking at that as a symptom and then giving you medicine for that. So that's why supply chain people should be good problem solver, not only that, any function for that matter, but for supply chain people, for instance, because there are lots of things that can impact a supply chain, right? So you need to can't look at only the first surface and take decisions. You need to drill deep. That's why I think Dr. Sakuntala will talk about problem solving tools. You need to ask why 5 times. Ask why five times, you will get to the answer. If you ask the first why, you think that's the reason, but it keeps coming back if you only fix that first why problem. But you ask why 5 times, you get to the root cause. So you should be digging deep into the problem to understand. The more you ask questions, more you unearth, then that will help you to make the right decision in a company, right? So very important, right? I hope you got the essence of it there from the video. So I'm sure I don't need to do this slide again. So performance measures are a critical success factor, which will enable the organization to put the strategy on track, align with the organizational goals, and it will help you to analyze the performance. And as I mentioned to you earlier, it will link you, and you should see the linkage there, the line of sight, even at a bottom level. You have the mission and vision, you develop the strategy by getting inputs from the business and also from the customer. So those are the inputs for when formulating your strategy, because you have to do the market evaluation. What is the technique you use to look at market analysis? What are the factors you need to look at? Yeah. No, I'm sure you have done international business. No, still. Okay, so maybe you can, when you all do that. So when you're evaluating the market, Michael Porter, you did management, no? Then you must have done that, right? So what are these? P for what? Political, economic, S social. Yeah. Then what is that? Environment. Yeah. Huh? Ethical also, yes. Pest, steel, factor, and legal also. So you need to look at all aspects actually. While internally you're looking at a SWOT, you also look at, because otherwise you will only pick one thing. Because if you're doing the business, you need to know how the political landscape is impacting, what kind of decisions they might take, economy, what is the situation, that has a bearing on your macroeconomic conditions, will have a bearing on your company performance, right? Inflation, people's purchasing power is reducing, certain products, they will move away and then they go into a sort of low cost items. So that's what happened during COVID, right? So lots of things can change. So when you're looking at the market, yeah, you need to, okay, listening to the voice of the consumers, plus at the same time, you need to do these analysis for your strategy as an input, right? So pesticides factors have to be looked at, right? And then you do the SWOT analysis, all of that. So that will be inputs for your strategy, and you try to see, okay, whether your industry or your business has a bearing on these aspects. And then you develop a strategy and the functional strategy from there, and the linkage from different strategies into that. And through that, you will try to implement the company's strategy, right? So, if you think that strategy vision is the biggest thing that the company can do, no, finally you can have grand visions and strategies and nicely framed and put it adorning the walls of companies as you enter in the chairman's room and all of that. But executing that is the most difficult part. 99% is execution and getting everybody's alignment. Execution cannot be done if there is no alignment. So there is a book in the library also called Execution by Professor Ram Charan and Larry Bozidi. Read that. It's very good actually. How to execute strategy. There are book summaries that are there in the internet. If you guys are lazy to read, read book summaries. Those some good Samaritans have uploaded book summaries also. So just read that. How to execute the strategy. What are the key things that we used to do? I remember during my time. So since I was a boss, I could ask students to do this. So my team to do that. So what I used to do is I tell my leadership team important topics. I tell them read each chapter and you do every week we have a departmental meeting. I said you come and debrief everybody so that everybody reads the book in the end. Each chapter somebody will come and debrief and say what are the key things. So you learn from that. It's good to do that, right? So then actually that's a powerful book. So alignment is very important. If you don't have a good alignment, you won't be able to achieve strategy, right? So this is one example of how to put strategy into action. This is Walmart, the biggest retailer in the world, right? See how the strategy into action has happened. Just wanted to show you so that you'll understand. So Walmart's pioneer was Sam Walton. At that time, Kmart in the US was their biggest competitor. This guy really wanted to set up something in Arkansas, in the US, Bentonville, Arkansas. So they started it to uplift the livelihood of people by providing affordable products. And that's how they started, Noble Vision. And therefore, their mission was provide value for our customers. So providing value for them to uplift their standard of living. So how do you operationalize the mission? Is through their competitive strategy or the priorities. So what do you do if you want to provide value for money? They said, okay, we will make sure the product is low cost. So it is not changing. So they were the pioneers of everyday low pricing, EDLP. Now Cargill is also using that tagline. EDLP pricing strategy was pioneered by them. Everyday low price. Doesn't mean every day they keep reducing. They have a kind of a very base price, which is everyday low price, they call it. So low prices every day. Now, how do they implement that? It's easy to say these things, but you have to implement and demonstrate that. How did they do? They had a two-pronged approach. I hope you remember, jog your memory to the supply chain session that I did 2 weeks before. In that, I spoke about 4 strategies in supply chain. You can look at it. How do you select what is the strategy that you need to do? Right? There are 2 basic strategies. What are those 2 basic strategies? One thing that is focusing on cost. The other thing that is looking at the responsiveness. I gave a clue now. So what is the strategy for cost? Focused? What is the strategy it's called? If you're focusing on cost, what do you call it? Anything to do with cost is called? Starting with E? Efficiency. Efficient supply chain strategy. I feel like committing suicide, right? You guys have forgotten now. Right? Now, so if you're focusing on cost, everybody, please notice that it is efficiency. Your efficient use of resources in your company, right? So you're efficiently managing everything, so you're able to provide the product at a low cost. So that's the efficiency. If you are responsive, meaning your focus is providing service at not at any cost, but you are covering that through your margin, right? So in this situation, since they are looking at low prices, they are focusing on efficient supply chain strategy, right? So efficient supply chain strategy meaning, remember also we discussed the 6 supply chain drivers. Like a car, when you're moving from A to B, you need to have a driver, fuel, all of that. Similarly, supply chain should have at least tell me one of the drivers. It's already in the note here, right? What are the drivers? To drive a supply chain, to facilitate or operate a supply chain, what are the things? Don't remember things, just think like that. If you want something to come to your doorstep, somebody has to produce it. To produce what you need? You need a factory, you need transport, you need a warehouse, think like that. Don't try to memorize, it will not come to your mind anyway at the exam. So think, how does it come to you? Supply chain is that, right? So you need to have place to produce, place to store. That's facility. Then because demand and supply is not equal, no? Therefore, you need to have inventory. So inventory is one driver which they are focusing. See? They are focusing on inventory. Now, since you are having efficient supply chain strategy, efficiency meaning efficient use of resources. Should you have high inventory or low inventory? Low inventory. Because you're not making a lot of money, you're making only small profit. So you can't afford to have a lot of inventory and allow it to go obsolete or expire. So you should keep very small inventory. So they manage operationalization of their everyday low prices through low inventory in one stream. Now, how do you manage low inventory? Low inventory means now a lot of people will go to the shop because it's cheap. Now, when they go to the shop, some stores may have enough of something which people don't want. Some things may be out of stock because more people are buying. But the thing that you don't have may be available in another area where it's not selling, but it's lying there. So how do you solve this problem? Connect all those stores together so that you have visibility. Remember, what is the driver which will give visibility in supply chain? 6 drivers I spoke about. Now I mentioned 2, facility, inventory. What's the other important one? Which is the driver which will give you visibility? Come on, guys. Which will give you visibility? Otherwise, you'll be groping in the dark. Come on, guys. What do you need to know how much to produce? When to produce? How many trucks I should order? What do you call that driver? Information. Without information, you'll be groping in the dark. Without information, you don't know where the stock is. Which store has more stocks than the other, where things are selling. So you link up. What they did was they linked up everything. Actually, if you remember this like a story, you will remember the drivers also. Right? You link up everybody. Right? When you link up, you know this store has more stocks, more people are buying, so we don't have. So they can rebalance the stocks. They can shift that stock to some other place. Right? And then, in fact, they used EDI linkages, right? So that you linked up, information can be immediately passed on to each other. And in fact, they upgraded the system to a satellite communication system called Retail Link. If you want to get more details, go and Google. It's there. And in fact, in that system, they now normally when you go to supermarket, you buy things at the checkout counter and they just give you the receipt and all of that. So when you punch information, that information within 15 minutes of the transaction, they are linked up, no, everybody. So that information is fed to their own system and their supplier system. So if I'm buying, let's say, some diapers for my kid, then I have that information will go to the diaper supplier. So that, and also now my stocks in my back store is now reduced now because I bought 2 packs. So now what happens is they will inform them, they will then replenish from the central distribution center of this store. That stock will go down because I have already informed the supplier. Supplier will replenish their central distribution store. So near real time, within 15 minutes of the transaction, because they are linked up, everybody gets this information. So this is power of connectivity. When you are connected, we know that. Now one of my students, just before I started the lecture from the previous batch, MFRB project, he has a problem. He's working for John Keys Logistics. So he wants to, he has a problem where when he gets from their own transport, they don't have a problem. But when they get from the spot market transport, they have an issue because those guys are never on time, the rates are high, so much involvement, management involvement and all of that. So he wants to now improve that. So associate problem and all, you guys will also face all this, right? So you need to now understand why. So you need to really know If you don't know all these issues connected, you will have a problem, right? So you need to understand the connectivity, how you get information, right? So the satellite, so this replenishment has to happen because you are connected. Otherwise, you don't know the cost of, investing in a new truck, getting a new truck and all of that. In fact, their system is so sophisticated now, it's only second to the Pentagon defense system. That's second biggest, and nobody can go to that IT center. It's a retail link system. Not only their own supplier network, they also give information about weather data, because you know that especially in the US and all, so much tornadoes and all of those things are there. So they tell them, okay, now there is a risk of this in this particular area. You will have to now have stocks in another area. Certain stocks will sell, certain stocks you need to buffer up. So suppliers also get that information. So in near real time, that's the power of information. If you don't know any of these things, you will be groping in the dark. You don't have information, right? So very important. Supply chains will collapse if you don't have visibility. So it's important, right? Then that is that. Then also, if things are out of stock, you need to quickly replenish those stocks. So they have another strategy to reduce the time taken to replenish. So they focus on the flow time. Quickly you need to replenish. So they have a rule within themselves. They are within 48 hours. If anything is out of stock, it will get replenished. So to do that, what you have to do, this is kind of a YY analysis, right? So why? Because your transportation is not right. So you need to understand why transportation system, fast transportation doesn't mean they will use air freight or courier, but they need to have a reliable transport network, which when they say that they're coming on time, like the example that my MFRP student said, they never come on time, madam. So they are not willing to invest in install technology, GPS tracking. They don't like to do that. So if you don't track it, you don't know where they are, right? So you need to see how to do this technology gap plus how to get them on time. If you get delayed, then you can't supply things on time to your customers. So similarly, one thing, your cost will go up, your intervention with your own staff will be higher, even if it's not your own fleet, and also you can't track it because they are resisting the technology adoption. So all that is a problem. So you need to see how do you do that. You need to get a very reliable transportation system. So these guys have their own transportation fleet, majority of the time they have it, and they follow cross-docking. I think I mentioned cross-docking in the first day as one of the ways to store products, right? Tell me what is cross-docking now? So they pioneered cross-docking. Cross-dock, what do you mean by that? Dock is the place where you take incoming vehicles, so and unload things. Cross-dock, what do you mean by what doesn't happen in cross-docking, like the conventional warehousing process? Yeah, they don't? Yeah, they don't take it into inventory. So they don't put it away into a rack. You bring them in, you have very narrow stretch, you consolidate, you get unloaded, then outbound trucks are there, so you consolidate stocks and off it goes. So the time taken to make up the order is less because it doesn't go into the put away racks. It doesn't go into the rack. So it doesn't go into your inventory. Of course, there is a way to track it so that they just ship it out. So they did it for what kind of products you can use for cross-docking? Fast moving, that no? You forgot about cross-docking, right? So fast moving means you don't need to put it away because there is an order. So it will go, right? Similarly, they will not mindlessly go and open stores. They will go and check the population density, whether there is a close by thing, all that they will look at and do that. Now, what my interest was to really show you this. Now, how do they know with all these strategy into action? How do they know they are doing well? They need to have the performance measures. So they've identified few things. I just picked a few things. One is order defect rate. That means when the order comes, how many defects are there in the order? They are unable to therefore do that. So they have a target. Only they can have less than 2% compliance, non-compliance. Rest you have to do that. The other one is on-time shipment rate. So you have to make sure all the orders you get 99% of the time you need to achieve it, right? Then valid tracking rate. So when you're tracking the shipments, when they're coming, whether their tracking is correct. So like that, they identify, then only you can quickly replenish, make sure that inventory is available in this place, so quickly bring it back. All that can be tracked and ensured. So this is how a strategy can be executed with clear KPIs. When you know that these are in place, obviously you will achieve your strategy. Connectivity, right? Okay, clear. So I just wanted to show you example, because normally local companies don't publish these. No, so I need to get overseas information. One fine day, if I retire, hopefully, very soon, if I retire from whatever, then I want to do something for local companies. So if that happens, right? So that will help you to relate actually what's happening in Sri Lanka as well. So another important thing I wanted to highlight here is that companies must have proper strategies. So Logistics Bureau did a survey some time back, and they have identified that if a company have a documented supply chain strategy, what percentage of the population that they surveyed, if you look at, only 39% of said that they have a strategy, but 43 don't have a strategy. Then 18% are saying they are in the process of doing it, right? So it's important that if you don't have a proper strategy, you don't know where you're going. So the first step is have your strategy. And if you do not have a documented supply chain strategy, do you think your business performance suffers as a result? There again, majority says yes, few says no, but not sure. So if you don't know whether your strategy will get you somewhere, then something radically wrong with your organization, right? So it's important to understand that companies must have a proper strategy. If you don't have a strategy, obviously, you don't know where you're going, right? Because strategy will take you to achieve your vision and mission. But if you don't have a proper strategy, meaning you can't even operationalize your vision and mission. So it brings me to this slide, which talks about what are the barriers, although we talk about all these things in theory, why companies are unable to implement the strategy. Grand strategies are there, but you are not able to achieve that. I mean, even I keep bringing politicians because anyway, like a lot of talk about politics. So during election time, everybody will talk about we become a very developed country by 2048, or some other party will come and say something, but nobody is checking by 2048 whether it has happened. We don't hold them accountable, right? Even for the normal budget, annual budget that we have, how many of us check and say what you planned versus what you're now saying? You all forget and do another budget. So if you don't have accountability, this is what will happen. Right? You need to then see whatever you promise, are you achieving it? Otherwise, then how will you then achieve that 240 or 230 or 250 vision? You can't achieve because you are not on track. Otherwise, just a paper exercise they do. So we need to hold people accountable, and you should know whether it's a realistic target or whatever. So companies, now there was a survey that was done by this famous balance scorecard duo that Kaplan and Norton, Robert Kaplan and David Norton, in their strategy focused organization book. And they identified 90% of the companies fail to execute strategy because of 4 reasons. Majority of the companies don't achieve the strategy because of 4 reasons, right? One thing is, we spoke about that. One thing is only 5% of the workforce understand the strategy, right? I will mention the company now. 2 days back, I did a session for PIM, did a management development, executive development program for a top company. And I was talking about the strategy, and I was asking, tell me what is the vision of your company? And they were all looking at each other and they didn't even know. See, if you don't know where you're going, how will you go? Which bus to get in? So like that, sometimes companies have very complicated vision, which you can't even remember. So one line with one simple tagline, it's easy to remember. And you must have a small card or some plastic card, or like you must have it on your computer screen as a screensaver. So you keep seeing that day in and day out. You have every training program, you ask some quiz and something, So you need to popularize and make everybody understand. So HR should think of these creative ways of doing things. So unless everybody know where you want to go, any road will get you there. So it may not be the right road that you will go to achieve that. You will get stranded somewhere. So if you don't know your vision, only 5% of the people know the vision, sorry Tamai. Yeah, you don't know where you want to go. So how will you achieve your targets? You can't, right? Then 85% of the executive team spend less than 1 hour per month discussing strategy. So importance of review, right? If you don't review, you don't discuss properly, 85% don't do that. So it's a management problem. Don't blame the people at the front end. It's always a management problem, not the people below. Most people leave because of management, not because of their own issue. So we need to hold management accountable to see how are you cascading this strategy into the next level, to the next level, to the next level. And every line manager's, it's responsibility. It's not the chairman's responsibility. We are there to manage our people. So your responsibility to manage your subordinates. It's in your own interest to make everybody aware what to do. So then only your job will be easier. Otherwise, you will be always firefighting. Because they don't know how to do it. They will also go on any road. And when you are being answerable to the board, you will try to give some excuse and you won't achieve your targets. Right? This is what is happening. So line managers' effectiveness should be checked actually by the top level management. I remember we used to have, we do a 360-degree and an annual climate survey. And in that, line manager effectiveness is one important area where in your performance development targets, if you don't get a percentage above a certain level year on year, that means you're not effective as a line manager. Because for you to drive the agenda, everybody at different levels expect you to do the job, no? Chairman cannot be there or a board cannot be there in each level, no? So chairman has handed it over to the responsibility to the board has the department led the next level, finally the front end people. So if you're not effective and you don't cascade well to the next level, they won't know what's happening and you can't give line of sight. No motivation. So it's important, right? So spending more than adequate amount of time, depending on the organization's need, and then you need to do it properly so that everybody is reviewing, understanding what needs to be done and whether you're on the right track or not, you can understand, right? Then the other issue is the resource barrier, right? 60% of the organizations don't link budget to strategy. Again, recipe for disaster. You have a budget, and when you plan the budget, that budget time, you don't know what needs to be achieved, therefore you're not linking the budget items to that particular target achievement. So obviously, without resources, you can't run a business. You disproportionately spend money on a particular function or a different area or a project, but where really the money is, you're not putting that there. So you should know the alignment. If the budget is not aligned to the strategy, you're giving money to something else which is not delivering results, then you have a problem, right? So that's another issue. Finally, the people barrier. Only 25% of managers have incentives linked to strategy. So any incentives or performance-based targets that you have assigned to the company, that again should be linked to the strategy. Because again, at each and every level, cascading, and that is why you need to spend a lot of time after the strategy development, annual budgeting process is completed, setting up targets for people. Some companies have set deadlines. Okay, the entire team we put into one room and then they all do that. So carefully, you must put some regimental behavior to do that. Otherwise, some people will do it. Some people will still take the next year's 1 month before the year end to do these targets. And people are demotivated then because you are putting something TikTok and then you're just saying your performance is good or bad or ugly. That's not right. If you want people to deliver, you need to tell them clearly what is expected of you. So if you know what you need to do, then if you're not delivering, that's your problem. But you need to make sure that you are clearly mentioned and you start reviewing that. So when the board reviews the company performance, the next level people should review and then come to the board meeting. The next level people should then come. So at each level, that's why it's very important to have the rigor in reviewing and also linking up all these incentives and the budgets into that. So it's very important. Strategy, having a strategy is easy, but execution is the most difficult part. And the alignment, 99% is the alignment. Vision is only 1%. Very important to do that. So let's look at some terminologies. Tell me, what is a metric? What is a measure? What is a KPI? Answers are there in the next page, but at least, right? So it's very important to understand this, right? So metric is derived from one or more measures. You need to give me an example. So metrics have a goal or performance attached. What is a metric? Give me an example. Yeah? Okay. Any other thought? Metric is derived from one or more measures. Metrics have a goal or performance attached. So he said sales performance, right? You mentioned about sales performance. Yeah. So there are many things you need to do to identify. Maybe you will say number of shops visited or number of sales calls. Sales people have different targets, right? A beat or something. They say the route that you travel. So like that, there are different terminologies they use for salespeople's effectiveness. So you know those particular metrics so that you know if all these A, B, C, D come all in place, then obviously you will achieve that. Then measure is fundamental unit, of course. Weight is measured by kilogram or pounds, like that. That's a unit of measure. KPI is a measurable value that demonstrates how well a company achieved their key business objective. So you will have a number. You will know whether it's good, bad, or ugly. You have to clearly say, if you're within this bandwidth, you're okay. If you're a good performer, you're a mediocre guy. So you're a poor performer. So you're clearly mentioned if you're within this bandwidth, you're like that. So that's a KPI. It's not like one thing, but you need to have a range within which you should operate and you tell them. So that's how these terminologies work. So when you're setting up a performance measure, what are the things that you need to follow? Right? So starting point is what? Your strategy. Because whatever we do, we have to do it to achieve your strategy. To companies, strategies will have strategic goals and objectives, right? So we need to identify what is a strategy, right? Strategic goals, right? So that is the success factor, because what does success look like? Should demonstrate that. So you have to be very clear cut. Then you need to identify within which period you're going to achieve this. Okay, so you are saying by the end of this year, you should achieve this target. Otherwise, you don't know when, no? Right? So you need to have a period within which you're going to achieve that. What does success look like? Within which period you're going to achieve that. Third thing is, how do you measure it? Measuring unit. Is it in percentage? Is it in million rupees? Whatever. Whatever the way you're measuring that. And then how do you interpret the results? Let's say you're saying your salespeople, you have set targets, right? And you will say this person company has to achieve 1 billion, different regional managers will have to achieve certain numbers. So some may achieve 600 million, another guy will achieve 50 million, some other. So how do you define which is the correct, which is acceptable? Good, bad, or ugly. So you need to say if you're within this bandwidth, you're a high performer. If you're within this, or you are like mediocre, like that, or maybe you will get certain percentage incentive for that particular. So you need to be defining that. Now to define that, you need to have the people who really understands that. You cannot just pick up something from up there and just say something, because it must be meaningful. Otherwise they will be demotivated. And you cannot, okay, performance measures should be smart. No, they say, what is it smart? What is smart? S is what? Specific, measurable. A is what? Achievable, yeah. R is realistic and time bound. Some people talk about achievement aspirational. You can be aspirational, but if it's aspirational to go to the moon, then it is not attainable, then they will be disappointed. So you should not easily achieve target, you should not give, but somewhat aspirational, but don't give it too much aspiration, then they will not be happy also. So you need to know the right balance, achievement versus aspiration, both, right? So you need to do that. So interpretation is very important. What does success look like? How do you interpret it, right? Okay, so time for you to go for tea. We'll watch this video and then come back. I hope after tea you will not forget. This is a precursor to the next 2 sessions. So let's watch this video and then break for tea, right?
Carl works for an online retailer. He has all kinds of data available to him. Number of customers, average order value, top selling product, click-through rate. He even knows the percentage split between male and female customers. The problem is that when his boss, Karen, tells him that they need to improve sales by 15%, Carl works for an online retailer. He has all kinds of data available to him. Number of customers, average order value, top selling product, click-through rate. He even knows the percentage split between male and female customers. The problem is that when his boss, Karen, tells him that they need to improve sales by 15% by the end of the year to compete with their nearest rival, none of this data tells him what he needs to do to get those extra sales. The problem is that all this data is what we call lag data, or lagging indicators. This means that it's information about the past, what has already happened. It's useful for keeping score, but by the time Carl's systems have produced the information, there's nothing that can be done to change it. It's like driving past a sign warning that there's a steep cliff ahead. It explains what's happening, but it makes no difference to the outcome. Carl wants to do a good job and he wants to please Karen. But however many times she tells him that sales need to increase, he can't make that happen just by willpower alone. Fortunately for Carl, there's another kind of data that is much more useful to him. It's called lead data, or leading indicators. These are pieces of information that predict success, and they do this because they're measurements of the various activities that lead to sales being made. Things like the number of pounds per day spent on online advertising, the number of adverts that include an upsell option, the number of adverts that mention at least 3 different benefits of the product. Carl knows that achieving a higher score on any of these metrics makes it more likely that sales will increase. He also knows that he and his colleague Tina, the advertising copywriter, can influence all 3 of these variables to some degree at least. They can ask Karen for permission to increase the advertising spend for the next 6 months. They can come up with a relevant upsell for every product and include it in every advert. Tina can write a paragraph explaining at least 3 benefits of each product they sell and make sure it's included every time they write an advert for that product. Focusing on these powerful behaviors, we can call them predictive activities, and the leading indicators which measure those behaviors makes Carl and Tina feel more in charge of the results Karen wants from them. It also helps Karen relax because focusing on leading indicators rather than lag data generates more predictable and consistent results. So, lag data tells us about past performance. It's relatively easy to capture, but it's almost impossible to change once we have it. Lead data helps us predict future success because it measures the actions and behaviors that generate the results we want. It's relatively easy to influence, but can often be very hard to capture. If you'd like more information on how this approach can help your business, visit www.practicalize.com.
Right. So that actually spoke about how to classify the types of performance measures that we have in a company. So with that, understanding, let's get some examples, right? So there are two types of indicators of performance measures. So one type is called leading indicator, right? Right. So first type is called lagging indicator. So lagging indicators are more output oriented, and that is normally done, achieved after some incident, event happened, right? And then there's very little that you can do about something about it to correct the situation. So, but it's easy to track it, and that's why many companies are using lagging indicators after the incident happened, because it's easy to capture. And very historical in nature. Sometimes you need to really look at what is it that I need to do to improve the situation. But whereas on the other hand, we have to look at the input oriented ones. Before something happens proactively, how can I set up performance measures which will prevent it from happening, right? But of course, this is a very difficult exercise because most companies always take the easy way out, right? So therefore, you track those things. And these are called performance indicators also, but very difficult, but it will actually have the ability to prevent something happening, because earlier one lacks the predictive power, but here you can look at proactively. So give me some examples of, let's start off with a lagging indicator in any area of your choice, preferably if you can think of supply chain or manufacturing related, that will be good, but at least any area of your choice. Think of maybe an exam question would be, select a lagging indicator of your choice and identify how it's linked to strategy or something like that, I might ask, right? I forgot to put an exercise this time. So something like that. So if you don't know, you will mess up the question. So it's important for you to understand what is it called lagging, what is it called leading. I won't ask you to define what leading or lagging, but I want you all to practically say, do that and link up. Okay. Okay. Give me an example. Starting off with lagging or leading. Either way is okay. Don't think in a very complicated manner. Simple. Is it a leading or a lagging indicator? She says number of hours we put in. Also be practical. Are we tracking that in the company? If that is the case, maybe you're from the legal profession. Maybe somebody can track how many hours you spend on a particular contract or whatever. I don't know. Effectiveness, you may not track it, but you're checking how many hours. Will it give you, okay, some companies also keep tracking these unwanted things also, which will not help you to get anywhere. How many hours you spend doesn't give you anything, isn't it? Remember that example in the video, how many shots you make and all of that. Okay, so some KPIs will not tell you what is it that you will achieve by tracking that. So don't look at things. So for example, I don't know whether that kind of thing is in certain industries. Maybe if you're in IT industry, you are putting in certain number of hours for a particular project or a job, then it's okay. But otherwise, because you've done all your homework and assigned that kind of hours, and if you do more than that, obviously then you have to get additional payment or whatever. But other than that, generically, if you're tracking somebody how many hours you spend, government sector, you will think, oh, they are spending so much time, but what is the outcome? What have we achieved? Nothing. Right? So you need to be, I just use that example so that we know how to select the right KPI for the right occasion. Similar example, like in the basketball match, right? You may score 100 goals with a weak opponent, and maybe that entire 100 goals were achieved by the Michael Jordan kind of a guy who's very tall, and you can there's a girl who retired, the tall girl from Jaffna. So it's easy. I'm not undermining her whatever authority, but the capability. But like that. So you also need to see some very mediocre person or somebody. That means everybody doing their part kind of thing. So you will have individual brilliance, you have high performers, but you want everybody to contribute to an organizational achievement. So one person might sometimes give the wrong picture about the total team. It may not be that. That may be an outlier in a positive way, But overall business performance or the functional team performance may not give you the right picture there, right? So one leading, any other example? Yeah? What about you guys? Any example? Any idea? Yeah? Nothing comes to your mind, right? Thinking of the assignment, or have all of you all submitted your assignments? Proactive guys, right? Right. You submitted, very good. Yeah? Example? Number of quantity produced. Okay, whether it's a quantity produced, yes, you may have a target, production target. How much have you produced versus the actual target versus the actual produce versus the target. Is it a leading or a lagging indicator? Lagging after the incident happens. Right. Okay. Now, most of you are very, that's why even the definition talks about it's easy so that everybody knows that, and that's what you track. But we want things that will proactively tell you that if there's a consumer complaint, number of consumer complaints is easy to track. But how do you prevent consumer complaints happening? What kind of a leading indicator you can identify in a company? What are the things that companies do to prevent consumer complaints? Producing quality products. That again also lagging, no? But what is it that you need to do? What are the enablers that will help you? What is it that you do? Quality control. Okay, next week you'll understand the difference between quality control and quality assurance. I will not try to cover her area, but that was my first job in Unilever as a management trainee. Training. That's a good one. Now, for you to do first time right, I mean, okay, what you said is correct. Number of defects that you have in the system is a lagging indicator. But you said first time right. Okay, to do first time right, that's again still an output oriented KPI. But in order for you to do first time right, what is it that you need to do? There again, targeted training, number of hours for that specific gap that you have identified, skill gap that you have identified. So normally, anybody from HR in the class today? Yeah, you're there. So towards the end of the year, everybody to achieve their number of training hours per person kind of a target you all have, no? So they keep on sending people if you haven't achieved the target, presentation skills, time management, to achieve the target. I'm not talking about that, right? But you need to do a targeted ones. If you see a gap, ideally you should have the right person doing the right job. If you haven't done a proper advertisement and recruited and got the right person, obviously you'll have a gap, right? But at least somebody's there at a certain level of understanding, but you need to bring that person to a different level. But that person coming up to as per the job spec 100% will deliver almost first time right. But if there's a gap, you can't be knowing everything, no? At least there'll be a gap. So to bridge that gap, what is it that you need to do? So you need to clearly identify the targeted skill gap bridged through training. So you clearly say about negotiation skills if you're a procurement person, or market understanding, if you're a planning person, understanding on capacity utilization. So like that, different functions, you will have certain skill register that you need to have when you do that. So very good. That's one. What else? To ensure quality, one other things you can look at. Training is one thing. Yeah, incentives also for the right targeted, but one more thing you can do to prevent quality defects. Again, your quality control means reactive. Creating good environment to do. Yes, but tracking will be difficult, no? Qualitative testing, you need to do a lot of research and all of that. Quality control meaning you have, to some extent what you're saying is correct. Let's say you need to get a product out, but at different stages you have to do certain tests and ensure before you reject something at the end, right? So you have set parameters, you draw samples, representative samples from the production run, you draw samples and do that. So if you follow the SOP clearly, then obviously when the sample that you check halfway, would be the right quality. What about audits that we do? Internal audits, you forgot, no? The main example at the exam you should write if I ask. I'm not asking the same question, but similar question if I ask. But if I forget to do the same question, bonus for you, because I'll be setting the paper a few weeks down the line. So you need to look at that. That's why companies do internal audits. So quality assurance people or people, what they will do, they can't be omnipresent. No, so many lines you have. You will have to have an army of people sitting and checking each and every product line. You can't do that. So what you do is you randomly pick production lines and then a representative sample, or maybe audit the whole process, because you have clearly identified the SOPs, standard operating procedures. You do this, you X, Y, Z, you do, then the product comes out. So if you follow X, Y, Z to the letter, what comes out is the right quality. So whether you're following X, Y, Z correctly, you do through audits. You randomly look at the risky areas and do identify without telling them, go and do an audit, and beforehand do that. Internal audits in financials also same story. You don't wait till your final end of the year, whatever, you do internal audits to look at early warning signals to do that. So preventive measures. Right. No, audit per se, in the sense you are randomly going and checking, no. So you will see something after something that is brewing. So if you didn't pick it up, you won't even know such a thing will happen. But you're picking it up, it's a preventive measure to correct the situation in-house itself. Otherwise, what will happen is, without your knowledge, something will happen. Somebody will take you to courts also. You will go and have a litigation cost, plus you go and fight it out in the court. But now, before you get it out of your company, you are checking what are the vulnerable. In the last session, I said, no, first you need to see what are the weak points in supply chain. If you know, at least if you know your supply chain KYS, you know where the linkages are, weak linkages. If you don't know, you don't know. It will be caught unaware of. You suddenly get some big shock to you, and you don't know why it has happened. But at least you're doing that. In a warehouse situation, companies do, in the mostly warehouse, they do cycle counts. So normally at the end of the day, accountants, what they do is at the end of the year, you do the close everything and count all the stocks and do the stock verification, right? Physical stock verification. But at the end of the year, too late. So they have to do cycle counts every time. I mean, ideally the best practice is, if you have 1,000 odd items in the warehouse, everything you touch in a particular given day, you should count and verify with the system stocks. So you may not send all the 1,000, no, but at least if you by mistakes, instead of A, you send B, you will be able to check the transaction and correct it there. Now just imagine you do thousands of transactions in a company, and at the end of the year, if you try to do it, it will be humongous for you to reevaluate each and every transaction. So the rule of thumb is, for good practice, you should do any stock that you touch, that stock has to be verified with the physical stock count and with the system stock. Any corrections you can do immediately then and there. Otherwise, transaction history is a nightmare, because you need to verify and correct it. Otherwise, your financials are wrong. So you do it early. That's an early warning signal you're tracking. So you're doing that. So that's a preventive measure. Similarly, if you're in a factory, you are checking lost time accident. Accident happened. In view of this person not reporting to work, how many hours lost? That's also after the incident, no? Now tell me an example of a leading indicator to track accidents. What do you do? Okay, you can check whether there are any unsafe. So, okay, what do you call that? So you go around a factory tour, look at again an audit, unsafe, safety cutouts are not in place, you'd go audit. So those are called near misses. So you are just missed accident to just miss. So just miss situations, when you know, I must be careful next time, because I didn't meet with an accident. So you need to track near misses, then improve the safety behavior. You need to inculcate that safety behavior, safety culture in the company, so that you will pick the mistake, pick deviations. So it will not result in an accident. I remember in my former company, when you are in the car, engine off, mobile off. Like the moment you look at a phone, that split second, there is a risk of you meeting with an accident. So we are not supposed to answer the phone while driving. And there is auto message, it goes, I'm driving, even chairman kata karat, that message goes automatically the moment you activate that message. And you will lose your job also sometimes if you don't properly do that, because it's unsafe. Because sometimes you just look at like this, somebody can come and hit you. So it's unsafe. I think there's some research work and a study done to say that within X many number of seconds, your attention goes away, the time to react is that much longer. So therefore, you will definitely meet with an accident. So because your reaction time, because time there, you see something and you have to react, but there is a lag time there also. So there you will meet with an accident. So when your attention is away, that time becomes that much longer. Yeah. So like that, company must have policies, company must have safety behavior tracking, behavior safety culture, so like that. So these are some of the things that's why I said these are difficult to do. These are difficult to think and do. No, you all also found it very difficult to give me leading indicators because it requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of thinking. How to prevent things happen. After things happen, very easy for everybody to say, yeah, didn't I say that? Easy to say that. But to prevent, you need to think. Use your brain, right? Not automatically autopilot saying things. So it's very important to look at that. I'm not saying you should not track lagging indicators, but you should do that. But more of leading, which will prevent issues happening. And it will move in the right direction. Okay, so now let's look at, we looked at the fundamentals, how to track and all of that. Now we look at quickly the supply chain performance measurement. What are the things? I'll look at generic ones and then go into a specific one. So everyone in the company should work towards achieving the target, right? So we need to have everyone from the supplier into the customer, and everybody should achieve, because finally at the end of the day, we need to ensure the customers are satisfied and they're happy. So everybody must, in the entire chain, jointly agree on the supply chain performance measures. So that's why you have to involve your suppliers. That's why you need to work with your customers, understand what each other wants to achieve, and align and have it. Otherwise, you will not be able to go on this journey together. So again, showing this vision, mission, business strategy, supply chain. So some of the metrics that you can look at it is in different ways. So you can have financial metrics linking to that, because supply chain contributes to financials in the company. 70 to 80% of the costs that you manage is from supply chain side. So you have a direct linkage there. So you need to also look at customer service, because you're fulfilling the customer demand. You need to look at those aspects. Then you operational to ensure to fulfill the demand, various things that you do within the company. So just listed out few things. I'm not going into details. Some of it you already know. So whether the company has the ability to service the needs is measured through your customer service measures. That's downstream, that is in the customer end. Whether you have the ability to serve the customer. So you can track these things through various ways. This is not an exhaustive list. I've just listed few things. For your understanding, I've listed. I won't ask you to remind and tell me how to do it. I just gave you, for completeness sake, how you are tracking to ensure in different areas what are the things to do. Then operational wise, because you have to do various things, manufacture, order things, produce things, all of that, packing, all that, right? So here you need to ensure how do you really, through your processes, various decisions, actions, how do you internally ensure customer expectations through these operational performance, which will finally ensure your financial performance, right? So you will do waste minimization. How do you do things quickly, faster, because consumers are now, they don't have the patience to wait for months and months. They want everything yesterday. So you have to start compressing the time, the lead times. That's why short supply chains are becoming shorter now. They are bringing it closer to home, or you bring it in-house to produce, because you can't wait for disruptions. So compression of the time is very important, right? And reducing cost and all of that, right? So inventory, supply performance, so various aspects in operations, you track it. Then all of us, we know about financials, so we look at these aspects. because that has a bearing on supply chain, has a bearing on these financial measures as well. Then this is a very important slide for you to show you how in a company, this is actually a international company, how they are linking up the company strategy into supply chain and the KPI, so that you will understand how this whole linkage happens, right? So if you look at this particular company, they have three main strategic objectives, because it's when you're setting up a KPI, it starts off with your company strategic goals and objectives, right? So they want to first talk about how are they really servicing the customer, because whatever it is, finally you have to deliver to the customer. If the customer is not satisfied, they will not come back to you and there won't be repeat purchases. So one of the main strategic goals is to ensure restore customer service leading level. Maybe earlier they were at the topmost level, they would have dropped down to a next level. So now they want to restore that to the leading level, must be, that's how they may be defining. They may be having different graded system for customer service. Leading must be the topmost level. So they have a target to improve customer service to leading edge level, right? So how do they track it? Through the goal. This is the objective. How do they track it? This is the goal. They do annual customer survey. Out of that, they want to, out of 10, they should get 9 or above. 10 out of 10 or 9. So that's the goal. Now you need to track how that is being done. Now that has to be done through supply chain. How do you do that? The other objective is improve revenue. They want to improve revenue to $5 billion. Third thing is, how do they improve the margin? Goal is to increase the margin by 10%. So this is how they do top line goals, strategic goals, and the objectives. Now, how do you do that? Now, to restore customer service level, you have to deliver what they want. If you don't deliver, they will not be happy. So that's the linkage. Line of sight. The next level person know, if I deliver, I'll be achieving 9 out of 10, hopefully, right? So improve delivery performance. So how do you link the company strategy into the supply chain strategy? This is how you link it. Improve delivery performance, right? And another thing is align sales strategy with planning, purchasing and inventory strategy through sales and operations planning. Those who are in FMCG, very famous sales and operations planning. It's an integrated business planning tool. You involve all stakeholders in the company towards achieving one set of goals, one set of numbers. Otherwise, everybody says we'll have a different number to go for. Production will be working towards another number. So you are not sure which number that the company is targeting. So it's an integrated business planning, which is called sales and operations planning. How you will do that is aligning sales strategy, planning and purchasing, inventory, because then you are linking up everything. Sales want to sell something means supply chain has to fulfill that demand. To fulfill, you need to have your planning properly, you need to have capacities, you need to have production, procurement has to be done properly, and also you need to have the right inventory. So all that has to be linked up, right? Otherwise, they are pulling in different directions. So that is that. So that's a procedural thing in the company, right? Then you look at supply chain strategies, create inventory health metric, right? So if you don't have the right inventory, you are not able to achieve the revenue, right? So to achieve the revenue, you need to have both these in place, actually in here also, right? You have to have delivery performance, you have to have the alignment of strategy, you need to also have right inventory. So probably they may be tracking the inventory strategy, or you say you have to maintain X whatever inventory, whether you have it there. If you have it, you give a score like that, whatever. They must be having some methodology to track that. Then network and inventory strategy. So probably they have a particular network in the company where you maintain certain stock in a particular warehouse, or maybe they have different factories supplying to different parts of the world, whatever. So that may be why they are saying the right network and strategy. Whether you are setting up your factory closer to the market, or you are centrally distributing or decentralizing it, whatever, right? And then the other one is establishing supplier scorecard portal. Because to improve the margin, you need to negotiate well and get the right raw material prices. So you need to get the right pricing structure, all of that. If you negotiate well, then it will flow through directly to your profits and margins. So you will achieve the right margin level. So like that, they have identified there are multitude of things you can do, but in this case, they have identified these key 4 areas as their strategy. Now, how do we know whether the strategy is on track? Now, these are the KPIs that they have identified, right? Now, if you want to improve delivery performance, you need to track on-time delivery performance, right? So, customer orders 1,000 cases. They want it within 24 hours. Have you delivered that on time in full? So, that's the KPI you need to track. When you do that, you will achieve your improved delivery performance. In turn, you will restore the customer confidence and achieve your whatever level that you want to have. So based on customer request date. So different customers may have different dates. Some will say, I'm willing to stay for 2 days. Some may say, I want it in 2 hours. Somebody might say, so depending on the customer and the agreement that you have, you need to track that. Versus the target versus actual achievement. On time, in full. Time is based on what you agree with the customer. So they have tracked it like they are tracking like that. Similarly, if you have aligned the sales strategy and the planning strategy and the procurement strategy and the rest of the things, then your forecast accuracy is right because you forecast based on the past historical trends, based on the demand. Then sales will go and sell based on that forecast. Procurement will order the right quantities based on the forecast. Planning will plan the production capacities, people, and all of that. So everything is aligned. So what you forecast versus what you achieve is very accurate. So forecast accuracy must be very high. So forecast accuracy tracked based on the forecasted number versus the actual sale. As a percentage will give you the forecast accuracy. So if you are doing everything right, you are very closely integrating and planning because sales will, you are picking the demand from the market, no? Then the sales also should sell as per the sentiment in the market. They can't go and dump things, no? Otherwise, what will happen is towards the end of the month, last 2-3 weeks, 2 weeks, they start selling everything to achieve their target because they are incentivized to sell. So if they don't sell the right mix, product mix that you have identified, then they'll go and sell the easiest product. I remember our sales teams used to go and very easy to sell sunlight because everybody is buying sunlight in lorry loads. So to achieve targets, although the price is lower than the high-end products, it's easy to go and sell it bulk because anybody will buy that. But Dove soap and all these high-end products, very difficult to sell. So they'll go and sell, but your product mix is not there. You are setting your target based on a product portfolio. This might be sold like this, like that. So if you go and have a huge, if you go and sell with a huge SKU, you're not selling what you're supposed to sell. You're going and selling against the market sentiment. So when the distributor's money is tied up by buying like entire 1 month requirement in 1 week, he doesn't have money to buy any other thing. Then the next week, your demand will come down because you don't have money to buy. Because you've gone and dumped it there. So this is sometimes, that's why the alignment is very important. Right? You have to have the right alignment so that everybody understands. You should be questioned why you sold like that, and you should not incentivize the bad behavior. You should have the target specific to the product mix that you should be selling, not going and selling something else. So when you don't have sales and operations planning, this is what will happen. Anyway, sales behavior is like that, but at least you can minimize that behavior, the odd behavior happening towards the end of the month. If that is the skewed effort, then it should get reflected in your forecast. Then they will always sell 70% in the last week and the rest of the things then you don't have to have production in the first 2, you close down the factory or whatever, you produce everything. So you need to see the viability of business if that is the real situation in the market. Now, if you look at the stationery business in this country, because we buy stationery because of the schools, they start towards the end of the year. So that business inherently is like that, skewed. December, they start buying things. So that business is different, but FMCG business cannot be like that. Any other apparel business cannot be like that. So each industry has a certain behavior. Aligned to that, your sales also should be operating. Seasonal sales, you manage like that. So you need to be really challenging the behavior if that out of the ordinary behaviors are there. Otherwise, you can't run a business. And finally, you look at inventory turns, because you need to have the right inventory. If the inventory is stuck, that means your money is tied up. Then you need to finance, because you don't have money to buy the next material run and all of that. So you need to look at how many times you turn over the inventory. That's one way of tracking how efficiently you're managing your inventory. So higher the number of inventory turnover, better it is, because you cash the sale. No? The more times you sell, you get money, and you can actually roll your cash, and then you can use it in the other. If your money is tied up, you won't be able to now you sell to get money. So your money is tied up. So it's an opportunity cost. You might as well put your money in a bank rather than tying up on inventory. So you better look at those aspects. So different industries will have different turnovers. Now maybe fast food chains will have a high inventory turnover. Automobile cars can't have the same turnover. You need to look at the industry specific inventory turnover and check what is the benchmark, and you need to look at that, right? Then you need to look at whether your suppliers are delivering on time, otherwise you are not able to achieve your inventory target. And then premium factory percentage, freight, because if you are not managing your supply, you might have to air freight it. So premium freight payment is that. So if you don't plan properly, you will have to then air freight. That means earlier your profit will get wiped out, because it's negatively affecting your improved margin strategic objective, because they want to increase the margin to 10% increase. So this is how the linkage happen. Are you clear? So this is how a scorecard looks like in a company. It'll be more complicated when you have a bigger portfolio, but this is a very top level linkage to show you so that you understand how this linkage happens and what are the things you need to look at. You had a question? Yeah, what is it? Economic order quantity. Yes, you're right. I didn't go into very granular level, but there are different ways you track your inventory ordering methodology. Economic order quantity, you have to classify as ABC or VED, or different methodologies are there. But this is one of the things they have identified. So EOQ model, EOQ, economic order quantity module can be used, but that is not a KPI. But as per the EOQ, whether you are having stocks, you can track it. Yeah, EOQ is a way to do things, way to manage inventory, economic order quantity, right? Okay, so I hope it's clear to you on how the linkage happens. I'm not again going into, if we do a quick group exercise, balanced scorecard is another approach. Some companies follow a balanced scorecard approach in like an overall company way. Again, the famous guys whose research I spoke earlier, Robert Kaplan and David Norton. So it's a strategic planning and a management system used to align business activities to the vision by in an organization by monitoring performance against strategic goals. So how do they do that? They look at internal activities, then they look at the customer side, they look at how creatively you can improve things, and they look at the financials. So internal, what is it that we need to do to excel at what you're doing? So that's what they're tracking. Here, customers, how do the customers see us? How do they, in the eyes of the consumer, look at us so that they keep coming back to us to buy things? The other thing is, how do we improve and create value? You can't be doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. You have to do things differently for different markets, different consumers, different situations. So innovative, creative levels of the organization, how do you track it? And finally, financials, if they are healthy, if you're achieving well, then that means you're doing it well. So I wanted you all to do a group exercise. Identify performance measures that could be identified for a company using balanced scorecard measurement. So you can, I know everybody's face becoming like that. If you had long hours, I'll skip this. You should do this as an exercise just for your understanding. This is how they normally do it. Just look at this. Financials customer, learning and growth, internal business processes. So what they normally do is they look at the objective, they look at the measure, they look at a target, they look at initiatives. What are the things that you need to do to achieve this? Like I showed you earlier, supply chain, the objectives, top objective for the company was improving customer performance, achieving that 9 out of 10 score. Then achieving the turnover increase, achieved $5 billion. Third thing was improve the margin by 10%. So that's the top one. So you need to identify here objective like that. Financial objective you need to identify. If it's a customer related one, you identify the objective here. Learning and growth is how do you do things differently, right? Internal business processes. So like that you identify. Then measure. What is it that you use to measure that? Now customer, they used to have a scoring system, 9 out of 10. So they have a customer matrix or inventory health check, whatever. So company will define something and that you have to use that rating or percentage or whatever. And then you need to identify the target. What is your forecast accuracy if you want to do that? So currently you are 90%, you want to increase it to 92%. So you put the target as 92. And then the final line is the initiative. What is it that you need to do now? All that is good, it's up there. But what is it that you need to do to achieve that? Very important, right? So you need to identify for you to move from 90 to 92 or 95, what is it you need to do? So that's your action. That action should be 3W. Who should do by when? What you will be doing by when? Otherwise, this action will never happen. So initiatives also you need to clearly do that so that you can hold people accountable. You will know what they will be doing, by when they will complete it. So that if you complete all of that, you will achieve the forecast accuracy from 90 current target to the 92 or 95. So if you have a targeted initiatives, you will achieve the desired end outcome. So like that, you have to carefully think about these things with the specialized team group. If you are in finance people will get to know. If you're customer service people will get together and do that. If you are in another area of learning and development, you will do it together. So like that, you have to get together and develop that. And normally I get the class to do this, but this is a specimen of that, right? So you can, again, not this only thing, but this is one company again. They have identified financials, customer, internal processes, learning and growth. So objectives, they have this ROC, asset utilization, whatever cost leader. So they need to specify what it is. And then what are the ways to measure it, and targets, initiatives. So this is a different way. So for example, customer, they have a priority called delight the customer or win-win dealer relations. So these are the targeted customer, share segment. What is the share of segment? 45% of the segment they need to have. And how do you do that? How do you know whether you have done it? You do the mystery shopper. So you act like a mystery shopper and call and check, and you go to the shop and see whether what they're saying they're doing. Mystery caller you do. You know, if you are in a hotline, you need to call and check whether actually what you were trained, are they doing it? So like that. So like that, you have to clearly articulate what need to be done. Clear? It's not a supply chain measure as such. Yes. Yes.
I don't think we should be on the same page for maybe, for instance, maybe to increase revenue.
Yeah. In fact, yes. Yeah. They have not put the figure. That's why I said you need to also, objective can be that, but the objectives you need to clearly, but I think they should be not there, but you need to put it under financially strong without saying financially strong. Okay, what is it that they need to do, achieve this turnover, whatever. They need to mention it there, right? Because that has to be very clear cut there. I think when I downloaded, this may not be the right one to be downloaded. This was from the internet. I got it and I redo it because I didn't want the company name to be known. It's an international company that they have done it. So you're right. Good point. So you need to be specific, like the previous case. Turnover, whatever, X much of improvement or whatever percentage wise, you need to really look at it. Okay. And these are some of the simple examples under financials, customer that you all can look at it, right? Now, I wanted to spend more time here. This is a specific, I have uploaded the score model. I remember on the very first day, when I explained to you about supply chain, there are different ways that the supply chain functions are being defined. One way to define supply chain is by the score model, which is supply chain operations reference model, which is done by the Council of Supply Chain Management, US. So they define supply chain as plan, source, make, and deliver. Remember, on the very first day when I explained the supply chain subject, I mentioned to you commonly. And so that model is something that is being very well widespread in the Western part of the world. So on top of it, in small picture figure, that's what I showed on the very first day in the supply chain module. So you have plan, source, make, deliver, return. So that's how they look at it. Now, normally when I was explaining, I explained as supplier, manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, like that, no? So this particular, it's like a certain way of, standardized way of depicting supply chain. So this particular organization, like if you are in integrated reporting in financials, there is a certain way to do that, no? Similarly, supply chain, as per score model, if you're doing it, this is the way to do that, right? So this talks about a holistic way of a company's operation. You have to subscribe this. Normally they say you follow the score model if you have more than 100 people in an organization. It's a costly affair, but it gives you a lot of best practices. You can compare numbers in the related industries. If I'm setting a KPI, they will also tell you. If I'm in a apparel company, they will show you apparel company KPI best practice number. So that I know when I set up my KPI, I know whether I'm good, bad, or ugly. So when you subscribe in their whole population who are already following this, it will throw up, because when you subscribe to this, so many million rupees you have to spend for this. That's why they say if you are more than 100 employees in the organization, you invest because you need to use a consultant. Those guys will come and do that. It's like a SAP implementation kind of thing, but it's a bigger version. But it has its own advantages. Companies have improved their turnover, all that. So just wanted to show you how it happens. Again, how the company strategy is deployed into KPIs level and all of that. So this is the big picture where how the entire company is looked at. So you have the supplier, you have the customer. So supplier processes and customer processes are linked to these processes within the company. Now, in a company, you have supply chain spanning across between supplier and customer, right? This is plan, source, make, deliver, return, and enabler. Enable is the enabling processes. But then to do that, company will have many other processes, right? So you have product and portfolio, life cycle chain, right? They call it PELCUR, right? There they talk about plan, right? Ideate, develop, launch, revise, enable kind of thing, right? Then you have another one called product and process design. When you're designing products, there's a process as per their score model. Then you have a sales and support, customer chain, CCOR. They call it plan, raise, relate, sell, contract, and assist. So like that, standardized way of activities, standardized way of at different levels, how to set KPIs, how to set resources, how do you look at people, all that is a very comprehensive one. So I've uploaded that guideline if somebody is interested to read when they are bored, right? So they looked at different levels, 5 sections. One looks at the performance, that is a standard metrics to describe how process performance and define strategic goals. Then the processes, standard description. So that, because this is like ISO kind of thing, everybody follow the same thing. So similarly, there is a standard way of tracking performance, standard way of describing the management processes and process relationships. Then practices, management practices that produce significant better process performance, because you have access to other people who are already subscribing to that information. So you can copy that information if you want for you to do that. And people aspect, standard definition for skills required to perform supply chain. So if you are following the SCORE model, you will know what kind of skills for, let's say if you are in procurement, what kind of skills you should have. Everything is specified there. To do the job, what are the skills you need? Everything is articulated clearly. So you subscribe to that way of working, right? And then you also have now with sustainability coming in, they have brought in sustainable SCORE model, includes standard definition for sustainable business model and environmental accounting. So this is a very comprehensive one. If you are a very evolved organization, I remember in Sri Lanka many years ago, Holcim used to follow. That was my early days in Unilever. I remember Holcim used to come and present. Now they don't use it. And tobacco company in Sri Lanka followed SCORE model. And some of our international Unilever companies used to do it, not anymore. But now nobody in Sri Lanka follows SCORE, but in some countries, many countries, this is a famous model that companies are following, right? Just for your understanding. So if you look at the performance measures, what they're looking at in metrics, these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 5 metrics that they are looking at. Maybe expensive, very expensive. Last time when I checked, it was some $1 million, very expensive. Because it involves a person coming in, because like SAP implementation, a lot of money, no? You need a consultant, you need to use this, follow all that, no? That's why. Unless you're a multinational or a big conglomerate, you won't be able to afford that. Because ROI won't be that much high. Then reliability, they track, because supply chains have to be reliable, robust. We discussed resilience. So reliability, the ability to perform tasks as expected. Reliability focus on predictability of the outcome of process. So what are the things you can look at? On time, the right quantity, right quality, which I explained to you. Then responsiveness, speed at which tasks are performed, cycle time metrics. How can you reduce the, so related ones that are there, right? Then agility, very important to be agile, quickly respond. External influences when they are there, what is your, do you have the ability to quickly respond to the marketplace norms? So adaptability and overall value. If you don't do it, what is the overall value at risk is something that we need to check. The other thing is the cost, which we cannot forget. Cost of goods sold is a commonly used performance measure. And then asset management efficiency, the ability to efficiently utilize assets, right? So inventory days of supply and capacity utilization. So normal ones, but they put it into under these 4 and they are tracking it as per a set guideline like ISO or SAP when you're having in the company, everybody follows that and it's easy to compare. Because if you're like, there are many companies following it, you can pick and choose, okay, apparel company, am I good or bad or ugly? Because they have information related to performance measures. So for instance, if you have cost of goods sold in an apparel company, similar products, you can check whether your company cost of goods sold versus a similar apparel company who are registered under SCORE, whether you are competing well with them, what is the best practice standard? And you can set your benchmarks as per that. And that's what happens, right? So next level of reliability metrics are these things that they are tracking. So I'm not going into detail. You don't need to remember these, but just for completeness sake. And before we, so that's one standardized supply chain performance measurement methodology adopted by Council of Supply Chain Management US, which is being identified as a supply chain performance measurement methodology. So that's what I wanted to show. Specific to supply chain. Balance scorecard is generic. Any company can use, but this is specifically to supply chain that you all can use other than, so many companies are using different types of KPIs, but this is one way of looking at it. Then I want to also show you the technology adoption in supply chains now. There are many, many examples called digital twins. Anybody heard about digital twins? Yeah, it's like a twin. You make a twin in a virtual space about a supply chain. It's mimicking the supply chain, right? Now, in a physical system, you can't do various trials to see whether this will break, no, supply chain will collapse. Now, with advancement of machine learning and artificial intelligence, you can now mimic the physical supply chain in a computerized environment, and you can create a twin of yours And you can do various simulations in that. What if, when you do this, what will happen? If I bring my supply chain from China to here, this time will come down, my inventory, so you can do some simulations to check what will happen. In a physical chain, you cannot order from some place and see whether it will collapse. No, you can't do that. So you mimic that in a computerized environment. So that's called digital twin. So you have the ability now to mimic in the virtual environment, so that those learnings may not be 100% perfect, but can be used in your decision making, different scenario planning. Yeah. Normally in companies, financials, when you're doing it during the budgeting process, you all do know, like, okay, if the price go up, simulate and see what will happen to my turnover, or price go up like this percentage, so what's the realistic, pessimistic, optimistic kind of 3 targets you might have in a company. And then you work accordingly to see what will happen. And you decide, okay, I'm going to use this number, right? So like that. But in a virtual environment, you can mimic that and do different scenarios. It will help you to decide different scenarios, and it will enrich your decision-making process. Now, building on that also, there's another technology usage in supply chain is called supply chain control tower. If you read each and every level, you will understand the different types available. Now we see control tower is basically, I spoke about the information as an important driver. Remember, information is one of the very important drivers in supply chain, because without information, you can't do anything. If you're ordering something, if you don't know when the shipment is going to come, you can't plan production. If you're ordering from a supplier, if the supplier doesn't tell you, whether they can supply you the entire volume that you can, what you want, then you have a problem, right? So how do you really understand things that are happening in supply chain using technology as a triggering event, so that everybody in the chain will get alerted kind of near real time? That will help you to operate the supply chain in an autonomous way. That's the end goal, ultimate end goal. Now, I don't know, I haven't gone in an autonomous car. Now, if you go to California, you can do that. But, so you have autonomous cars. You program the car, it will drive on the main road. And when it goes on the road, you see a vehicle, because it's programmed in such a way, there is a certain distance and you fence it, whatever. And then when it comes up, when you come across an obstacle, vehicle will brake on its own like a normal human being doing it. Yeah, sensors. So there are sensors and various, smart bots and all are there. It will do that. So that's what the supply chains are trying to mimic now, because there are so many stakeholders beyond the borders now. So supply chain control tower will feed in information. The simplest form of control tower is, you have within the company a lot of people, stakeholders. So you are connecting everybody, right? If within the company, you have plan, source, make, deliver people. So ERP system will do that, no? So you have run your MRP, all that, and then, you get all the information. But when the shipment comes, there is no integrated way to understand, unless you ask from your procurement person, whether the shipment is going to come on this particular day that you committed. Yeah. So somebody has to send an email and ask, okay, we are going to start production by such and such a day. What is your confidence level on getting the shipment on time? You have to send an email, no? At the moment, some companies automatically, when you have a dashboard kind of thing, you feed in information, automatically everybody will get that message. Like the example I showed you in Walmart, where retail link system, all the stakeholders are linked up. So when I go to the supermarket chain to buy something, whatever I bought, similar information simultaneously go to the supplier, goes to the company warehouse people. So warehouse will replenish the store. Same way, supply also at the same time will replenish the distribution center. So everybody is connected. That's why you can do that. So what the control tower do is, all stakeholders who are in the supply chain will feed in information. Their first step is you're connected. Everybody's connected. If you can connect your suppliers, your shipping lines, your transport providers, all the stakeholders who are part of your supply chain, if all of them are linked up, that's the first step. They should be willing and they should be trust in your system to link up. No, blockchain is such a setup. It's a distributed ledger. If you don't trust, I don't want to share. No. So if somebody wants to change it, everybody in the system should agree in a blockchain setup. Otherwise, forging, all that cannot happen in a blockchain environment. If I believe in this, if I trust the stakeholders who are part of this, I feed in my information. So it's a distributed ledger. So everybody in the system feed in information and the end consumer will have visibility on the entire chain, traceability. So if I'm selling something, I don't know whether I mentioned this example, this selling, there is a handloom company in Sri Lanka. They are actually from Kurunegala. They've been there for a long time. Actually, the founder, Sandra Vanduragala, the lady, actually became the Forbes over 50 top 50. She's over 50 top 50 woman in Asia. Recently, she got recognized like that from Forbes. So they actually work with artisans, females mostly in that area, and they actually do their handloom small, what do you call that? So that's called handloom, right? Whatever, heirloom or whatever you call it, right? Traditional way of doing it. So they actually do it in their own homes, and some of them are working in the factory, and they supply the yarn, and some of them make the clothing, and they bring it and they do this thing. So they have the store in Tibirigasaya, Colombo 5 in 5 Road. So they actually do a handbag or something made out of banana fiber, right? So they normally sell that in the Dutch market for some 250 euros or something. But then they got some funding and they used blockchain to show that it is traceable up to the person, and it's women-owned businesses, artisans doing that, and they get a decent wage and they are paid on time. All of that traceability is there. So now after they implemented blockchain into that thing, can you believe how much they're selling that thing? Now they're selling it at 750 euros. So the Western consumers are willing to pay for such ethically manufactured, environmentally friendly products. I couldn't believe that when Selena, the daughter is the one who's now innovating and doing things new, young lady. So she's doing all of that. Now just imagine the potential when you give traceability and you have the connection. So like that, the Western consumers are now wanting this authentication, whether it's coming from the real sources, right? And that's why our garment industry, also garment without guilt. You can wear those garments without any guilt because we pay decent wages to our workforce. We have a very decent environment. We pay right salaries, kind of thing. So when you wear, you know this doesn't come from exploited labor, slave labor, child labor, all of that they know. It gives a authentication. So blockchain will give that. So I'm showing you here is if people can feed in information to the network that you have, starting point is that. So the very first one is the first level of control tower is, so first of all, supply chain control tower is automatically collects and integrates structured and unstructured data from across the supply chain, from barcodes, remote sensors, IoT devices to weather and traffic data to provide real-time information and insights. So you have so many devices now, barcodes, QR codes, RFID, very lot of things are there. So with available sensors, you feed in information to this centralized control tower. So when everybody feeds in information, you have visibility. First step is getting the visibility. So you have visibility of everything that is happening in your end-to-end supply chain. So you have visibility, all the events and milestones you want track across the entire network. So if you are intending in feeding information to a control tower, which is going to be the ultimate thing in supply chain, right? First, you need to have basic information. That information must be visible to all the stakeholders. Just imagine now already shipping lines, if you are get into their websites and all of that, you know, like a particular shipping line, if you're getting your stuff, it will tell you when it is coming, all that, where the ship is, you can. But any other event that happens at the supply line, you have no visibility. Airline knows. So even now you can check from your phone how the airline movement happened. On the phone, you can check, download this air traffic map, shipping map, all that you can track. But you don't know what's happening in your supply when he had loaded it. Okay, after it's loaded, you can track it. But you don't know. So if you feed in that, getting visibility is getting everybody linked to this central system, right? Then next level is, okay, you have now visibility. Now if something goes wrong, how do you alert everybody in the whole chain? For instance, you receive alerts based on this SLAs. So you have an agreement with your suppliers. When you place an order, you have to supply within whatever the lead time, plus or minus whatever days. So you have a clear SLAs. If it goes above that, you get an alert from the supplier to the system. So everybody in the chain will get that alert because everyone is connected now. No? So that's the second level of control tower. Next level. It is actually lead times are tagged to all events and milestones, and you collaborate to resolve them real time. So if you know shipment is getting delayed, I will tell my factory, I'll tell my customer also, there is a delay, I'm going to do something like this. So you can proactively work on it because you know that beforehand. You keep the customer informed well ahead of time. If he says, still I need this particular product on this date, you have then another plan. Plan B can be activated. Right? That's a second level of control tower. Third level is decision support. Now, at this stage, you are still knowing only what has happened. But now the next level, if you have improved, you need to take action for that triggering event that has happened. Right? Third level is you now execute transactions within the control tower, and the users make decisions based on recommendations from the intelligent agents. So you have intelligence agents in the system. Now with machine learning, all of that, all these bots are there. No? Even if you put some requests in a lot of Facebook and all of that, you have these businesses that are there. No? So you put something, even 12 o'clock in the night, somebody bot will answer that to you. Because automatically they're trained like that. Chatbots and all of that there. So sometimes human is not there. So you can actually, certain standard FAQs, they can respond. Right? They're trained to think like that. They haven't become very, very advanced yet to ask any question. But at least even ChatGPT, when you ask something, reasonable output you get, no, it will be an initial preliminary work good. After that, you just customize it based on your need. That's what you guys always do now, no? Right? So now Turnitin can pick that up also. Right? We can pick that. Right? So decision support, meaning that intelligent agents will react to this. Now, if the shipment is getting delayed, you don't need to physically send an email. Automatically, system in itself will predict these are the ABC actions that you should take. So now system becoming smarter and smarter now. That's the next level. The final, ultimate, still up to this level 3, you still need a little bit of human intervention. But level 4 is fully autonomous like a car. Human don't get, I mean, I don't know whether such a system exists now. I have heard about up to level 2, but I don't know, maybe there are there. But level 4 is when something happens, bots will activate on their own and then run the supply network without any human intervention. So that's the future that we are going in, right? So intelligent agents embedded in the execution layer run the supply network without human intervention. So if there's a delay, they will say, quickly change over to this particular product. This is closer to this market requirement, tuck, 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 like science fiction, right? So this is how the future is going to be. I'm not a fan of science fiction. If you guys are interested, there are so many Netflix movies on that. Watch this. You will see how the world is changing. So this is, I just want to show you because it's just fascinating for me when you look at it, because supply chain is fraught with a lot of changes, risks, and all of that. And you can now mimic what really happens in a physical supply chain. In a computerized environment, you can play around, right? And then you can see what the scenarios will pan out, and then you can act on it rather than really demonstrating actually in a physical environment. It's like doing a fire drill physically. You don't have to do that fire drill. Still, you train people, otherwise do that. But you now do everything. You go in the airline now, Singapore Airlines and all, they don't have a air hostess showing this is the way to go in and all of that. Now they show some fancy places in different parts of Singapore, and unbelievable. I don't know, they live in some nice river and showing them how to put the mask and all that. I think it's funny. But you get distracted. You're not looking at the safety action, you're looking at the scenery there. But that's how it happens now. So you slowly are moving away from human interaction. You're going into this virtual space. I don't know whether it's good, bad, or ugly, but that's how the supply chain is also moving now. So you can activate like autonomous car. You can autonomously operate supply chain. That's the final ultimate thing that will happen in time to come. Some may be still trying to do that. So this is how to activate the performance. No, if there's a deviation, what to do? Quickly activate. So control tower concept I wanted to show you, because we have very limited time to talk about supply chain, but I just thought I'll show you. And coming back to from a very high level attitude to a real operational things, these are things that we track now physically. Some of it, again, not an exhaustive list. Some of the KPIs, performance measures that we track it in companies to look at timeliness or cost and quality. And we discussed resilience. What are the things we need to look at? Time to recover, time to survive. Remember last time we looked at how quickly you can recover from a shock and how you can survive. So those are resilience factors. I didn't want to again put it here. That's another one that we track. And I just want to finally show you how supply chain really creates shareholder value in a company, because putting everything into the big picture here, and whatever we do, we need to create value to the shareholders. Otherwise, you will not be sustaining your business, because if they move away, then obviously your business will not have a sustenance. So how do you get into this is through economic profit. So how do you get it there is through sales revenue and cost of goods sold. You will get it here, the net income connection here. So how do you get the sales revenue is ensuring your product being available, right? So how do you get cost of goods sold is, as I mentioned to you, 60 to 70%, sometimes as high as 80% controlled by supply chain. If you look at, so that actually addresses the net income, which will one of the aspects that you need to look at when you're achieving your economic profit. Then if you look at the working capital, you are looking at inventory, not only the inventory, actually you must add the creditors also here. So you manage the creditors. Debtors you don't directly control, but creditors and inventory, working capital management, again done by supply chain. Then physical capital, you need to look at the effective utilization of your assets. Sorry, this has to be factories, right? There's a spell check here. Factories, not factors. Factories, warehouses, and space in retail stores. So that's again addressing the asset aspect. So if you really look at, there are in every aspect, there is a connection to the creating shareholder value. So you should know your value. How do you create value? And you should be able to convince what you're doing, because if there's a disruption in supply chain, or if you're having a poor performing supply chain, research has shown that it typically destroys shareholder value by an average of 8.6%. So if you don't really know what value you create to your shareholders, because of this, you will really don't know the end objective that you need to ensure. So it's very important that you really create value, but how do you create value, and how quickly you should get out of a disruption, or you cannot have a poorly managing supply chain, which actually will value degrade to your shareholder, not value create, right? Okay, so if your supply chain is matured, you should have, not in this end, you should be part of here. You need to really look at an enterprise-wide performance measure, not only to look at one area, but you need to have your, not only the processes only, you need to really look at the entire supply chain company, in the entire company. Strategy should be aligned, everybody should be aware, there should be coordination and collaboration with all the stakeholders in the company. You need to make sure that there is integrated planning, performance measures are in place. So to what degree that you have in the company, you can do this and see where you fit in the organization. So if you have not only the performance measure, but you also have agility and adaptability also built into that, will help you to improve your business performance. So maturity means you move away from basic to advanced level. So performance measures therefore plays a huge important role in there. And let's watch this video, just end my sessions. But this really shows you, just watch it and then I'll ask you the learning and that will conclude the session. Yeah. Formula 1 pit stop, keep your eyes glued to this, otherwise you will miss. May have seen this before.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. The tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stopped.
What will happen now? I mean, 11 years behind schedule, I don't know how that is happening now. I still couldn't catch latest one, but they say in future it will not even stop at a pit stop. It will dynamically do the wheel changing. I don't know how true it is. I read somewhere in an article. So this is how the world will. So you saw how everybody is focused. Everybody had a role to play. It's like in a company, right? If you're all focused towards your end objective and you know each other's role, and in the very first instance, some people are like enjoying taking pictures while the others are doing the hard work. It cannot be the case now. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has a role to play, and you have to be single-minded focus in improving how to do it better than what you used to do, because time is of essence. Time is currency. You need to do things fast. Not oil, not everything. Actually, information is currency. So how do you really do things faster? And in an aligned manner, you will keep on improving. So that's why things like score model will also get you to expose to best practices. So you know what the best practices is, whether you are doing. So otherwise, you don't know. You will have your own target based on your own comfort levels, and you may not be the best performer, because especially in an islanders mentality like we have in Sri Lanka, we will think we are the best for everything. We are not the case, and we are still way behind and like frogs in the well, and we think like that. But there is so much out there we can actually learn from. So we have to be very open and aligned to achieve our goals. With that, sorry, I took few more minutes more. Conclude the supply chain performance measures. So I'll see you again at the end. And let's do a quiz. I still couldn't do the Kahoot quiz, so I'll do the quiz to see whether you guys at least pick up some things. And last day we'll do a kind of a quiz, online quiz, and see whether you have picked something. I hope you don't have any questions. I'm also feeling tired today. But you can always contact me, and I have my, you can contact me through LinkedIn. Also, my LinkedIn is here. Some of you have sent me invites, so you can send me invites, or you can through LinkedIn or maybe WhatsApp, you can connect with me. Yeah? Okay, good night.